So let's talk a little bit about, your incarceration. You went in at 17. Like you said, man, it was a whole new world. It was almost like an instant shock to you. So let's talk about your transition once you got in prison, and how did you begin to kind of try to figure out the ropes?
My transition, inside of prison, once I got there, it was like, basically trial and error. You know what I'm saying? When you go in there, that the prison got rules. It got written rules and unwritten rules. And the written rules is, that's something that an old head come to you. You know what I'm saying? You show, some firmness about yourself. You show people that, you can handle yourself. They'll sit you down, man, and they'll tell you the rules. The unwritten rules, man, is the things that you got to learn, man. You got to pay attention. So, just paying attention to my environment, man, and getting around, the right people, it was very important in the early years of my incarceration and the transition of really being somewhat, comfortable a little bit in prison. Because you're never going to be real comfortable because you're incarcerated. The first 5 years, it was really something because I had to, address a lot of issues. Coming through there, man, it happened to address some issues and I did what I had to do, let dudes know that, it's not going down like that, man, So, also being in there with a lot of dudes that I left the streets with who knew me, and you get together and you build somewhat of a camaraderie with dudes, man. So that's how it was in the beginning. Coming from the streets, man, and having a name, people expect certain things from you. So when you go into a place like that that's really dominated by reputation and things like that, that's something that you're gonna have to stand on. You got to stand on your name, stand on your reputation. Whatever you did in the streets, it might have affected enough. Some people or some dudes, they was feeling certain type of way about you, period. So now they got you in there. So, when those type of issues and things come, you gotta address them, and you gotta address them properly. You know what I'm saying? So you're talking to a young man who had 50 years. When you got that much time in prison, you got to do things that's going to solidify you to be able to keep your clothes packages, your commissary, your goodie packages. The vultures and the wolves, man, they coming. Prison is like that. Prison is dominated like that. So if you think you're going to have a free ride and a free slide, that's not the joint. And so I got that basically out the way, and I could start concentrating on not only reform, but growth and development.
You had 50 years. So of course, it wouldn't be hard for you to, give up hope thinking that, you're going to spend 50 years in prison, right? And most brothers always think of what their purpose is going to be when they come home, instead of finding their purpose within those walls, right? And pursuing that purpose, right? And then coming home and, extending that purpose to out here in the streets.
When you're in prison, it's so easy to lose hope. One of my little brothers, man, he came home today after doing 28 years. And he had a life bit. And if he would have gave up, he would have had a right to. People would have understood. And if I would have gave up, man, I would have had a right to. Like, man, you got all that time. But for me, my purpose came when I started to practice my religion. When I started to apply those lessons and those God-like, those lessons from the Quran and those lessons from the Sunnah and the things that I learned, I started to be a man who told the truth. My life changed when I stopped lying. See, in the former life that I was in, lying was a requirement. We told lies that sound true. But when you start being honest, it's like a breath of fresh air. It's like a breath of fresh air. Honest with people, honest with yourself. When I start doing that stuff, when I start being honest, my life changed. And that's from my religion. That's a principle in my religion that I started to practice. So from that point, I developed a purpose. In prison, they know, it's a military term. One of my old heads told me back in the day. He said, ain't no atheist in the foxhole. And a foxhole is a hole that's dug out, in military, when you bombs and everything, gunfire and all that's dropping. You're going to call out to somebody. And things started to evolve even higher than that. And I found myself in one of the highest positions that you could find yourself inside of a prison, and that's being the imam. An imam is a spiritual leader for a group of men. And it just so happened that I was imam in one of the biggest groups in the state of Maryland, which is JCI. We had over 298 Muslims, and it was growing. So one of the things about being an imam in prison, and a lot of people might have a false misconception, is they think anybody can get it. And sometimes anybody do. But for the most part, people are going to investigate and do their homework and make sure you have the ability, the character, and the knowledge to pull it off. And this is no praise to myself, because wherever I lacked and whatever I didn't know, I had good brothers around me who would advise me. But when you take that position, it does something to you. You start to realize that people depend on what you say and what you do. So for me, it was like the plateau of my growth and development. So I said that I'm going to do what other men did for me. I'm going to help a man in his incarceration. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to give him words of wisdom. I'm going to give him hope. I'm going to try my best to help people who are going through the same thing that I went through. And what happened was I was attracted to another crowd. And this crowd was a crowd of men. I used to watch them. I came to prison, I was already Muslim. I wasn't a convert in prison. I was already Muslim. So I started to watch these brothers going to the visits, had their jalabiyas on, making the salah. I remember one day they was playing basketball out in the yard. They stopped the whole yard for these brothers to pray. And it wasn't easy, I tell you that. One of the hardest things to do is to try and tell a man to do something that's right. Perfect example. When I used to, give the khutbah, and I used to give the religious speech and talks, oftentimes after, I would have guys come to me and say, who you need me, who got to get hit, and who you need me to hit. And that used to puzzle me. So when you say somebody getting hit, that means somebody gonna get stabbed, right? Dudes who come to me, who need to get hit, who you want me to stab, stuff like that. This was something that was easy. But I told him, I said, I don't want you to stab nobody. But if you want to do something for me, come to class. It costs you nothing. You're going to educate yourself. And then you're going to know what doing something fi sabilillah is all about for the sake of your Lord. Because it's not about me. It's about your Lord. You are in a religious environment. You are dealing with religious people. Why would I have you do that unnecessarily? So to convince men of doing something right is harder. It's so easy to do, take this, do that, take this. They do that without but to just come to class, sit down and give yourself some time to learn about something, to educate yourself, to challenge your mind. This is hard.
Now, it sounds like to me that that's a lot of power for an individual to have. When you can give a religious speech and then someone can walk up to you and ask, who do you want stabbed, right? And so that's a lot of power. Can you talk about that power and how that power has to be used or utilized when you're in that position?
Well, you got different leaders in prison. You got different groups in prison. And each leader possesses a certain amount of power. And, nowadays they call them shot callers. And one of the things that my mentor, Mosi, told me, he said, absolute power corrupts. And when he said that to me, I didn't really understand what he was saying until I had it. So one of the things that I wanted to do to set me, apart from the rest of the pack is that I wanted to remain firm on my core principles. And one of them was justice. Justice. If a man was right, he was right. Whether it was against or for my community. Perfect example. If you stole from a person and that individual wasn't Muslim, you had to give that back. You had to return that right to that man. And normally it's like, oh, you with me, he right or wrong, I'm gonna ride with him. That wasn't what a religious leader does. He establishes justice. So I remained firm on that. And that principle made me different and set me apart from the pack.
So we talked a little bit about, you being embraced in the circle with the men of honor, how they were able to modify your walk.
One of the old heads came to me one morning, man, I was laying in my bunk. So he said, man, I'm about to do, something that probably none of your little friends before did. So I'm like, man, what's up, man? What you getting ready to do? So I'm ready to take you to the law library. I said, the law library? He said, yeah, because you got to go up there and work on your case so you can get out. See, ain't none of them do that for you. Because they ain't want you to get out. They ain't want you to work on your case. They wanted you right where they had you. He said, I want you to be free, Snip. I want to see you on the other side. And this man had double life. He had life big. Double life. That first circle, they step on your shoestrings to keep you from flying away. You see what I'm saying? But this other circle, this more reserved circle, this more clear-minded circle, they want to see you fly. They want to see you fly. So, man, that was a real impactful, statement and a real impactful interaction during the course of my incarceration. So, they really help you in modifying your walk. And it's something that has to be present inside of you because, for your young guys, it's like, you ain't my father. How you gonna tell me what to do? You know what I'm saying? You can't, nigga, you an inmate like me. But see, what happens is, as you start to see the proof in the pudding. Now, what OG told me was facts. And when I started doing it like that, or when I started carrying it like that, I seen a definite change. So these was the men that, I gravitated toward.
Now, I heard you say once before that you had to earn your right to sit at the table with the men of honor. Mm-hmm. So, knowing that you had to earn the right to sit at the table and to be in their circle, how did that affect you and your thought process in dealing with them?
Well, one of the things about these particular men is that whatever you say you are, there has to be a series of events that take place to validate your claim. When you say you this and you say you that, and it doesn't, and your speech doesn't match your walk, you automatically they're gonna give you your papers to tell you going about your business. So when you're doing what you say you're doing, that right there is the first step. And what happens is when you come inside that circle, they help you, they modify your walk. You might don't want to do it like this, shorty, or you might don't want to do it like that. You're on the right track, but you might want to do it like this. Dudes like that got a lot to lose. They got a lot to lose.